Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy 2026. We are in a new year and we are going to fucking kill it. Okay. So, as you may have noticed, I'm going to explain all the new changes and everything that has come to this podcast. And I'm going to explain why there has been a shift and a pivot and just good things and new things that are coming to this podcast. Now, if you are a longtime listener of this podcast, when I started this podcast 2 years ago, because we are in season 3 now of this podcast. So I started this podcast 3 years ago. I've had an idea to do a podcast since 2007. I know it's been a long, long time, but mind drama, mindset, being a mom to special needs kids, work, this, that, kind of put things on the back burner. And of course, I didn't have the most supportive spouse either. Lots of changes have occurred in my life. So finally, in 2023, I took the plunge and I've been successful since that. And I've have 2 podcasts. There is a work for a third. So lots of good projects happening for my brands because I own another brand as well, along with this one. And I'm just fucking super excited for all the good things that are happening. So I would like to answer all the questions that you may have. If you haven't heard the last 2 episodes, if you're new here, welcome. Welcome to the Feral Brand Method podcast. So that is the new name for this podcast. Now, when I originally started this podcast, I started out as talking about my journey as a special needs mom and helping other special needs parents. Now, even though that content does resonate and I've had some very awesome guests and I have been guests on other podcasts talking about my journey as a special needs mom, it really didn't resonate with what I wanted to do, what I was passionate about. Not to say that I am not passionate about being a special needs mom and helping other parents. Absolutely, I am. However, I wanted to do something that I was really, really passionate about. I'm a very creative person. And I love to teach. And there are things that have transpired and a lot of lived experiences that I have that I feel that I could help other women who have personal brands as myself to really elevate their content and show up without the inner child running the fucking show. Okay. So, and I did a little bit of a pivot where I wanted to started talking about relationships and things and that. And I dabbled and I just realize it didn't set my soul on fire. Okay. I need to have something that is going to set my soul on fire that I'm passionate of talking about. So how I got the idea of really pivoting and transitioning my personal brand when it comes to this is I was helping out a friend of mine with his own personal brand. And I mapped out an entire content strategy for him. And we dove in on why he wasn't posting stuff on TikTok. And I told him, I said, what was it like as far as your childhood? Because he had a lot of inner childhood wounds that he really needed to work on. And that was prohibiting him from showing up and really just owning his brand and getting the content out there and really focusing and just elevating his message on who he is and what he is all about when it comes to his brand. So I sat down and I got my whiteboard out because I love my whiteboard and my dry erase markers. And I started mapping out an entire roadmap on how he should structure his content with pricing, with, how he should post and how he should deliver, his content and the mental inner child healing and shit that we needed to work on. And let me tell you, ever since we did that, he has made $20K in his business. Just like that. In a matter of a week, 2 weeks, he made $20K in his business. So that really kickstarted for me on the fire. Yeah, I can actually do this because I have had my own issues in my own brand on showing up where I wasn't consistent. I would shy away, because when it comes to social media and when you show up online, it doesn't matter what kind of content you post, people are always going to have something negative to say. Okay. And how you deal with those people is basically you just tell them to fuck off and move on. Basically, that's what you need to do. Is you don't give people that time of the day because the reason is they can't do what you do. because you're out there making an impact and you're actually doing something and you're being confident and showing up, somebody's always going to have something negative to say. But you have to give zero fucks about what other people think, because if you're passionate about it, you should talk about it. People are always going to hate, and that's just a normal part of life. When it comes to social media, you have to have tough skin, but you can't let your inner child and those wounds dictate on how people try to censor or quiet you in your content, because that's not what it's all about. When you have a bigger message and you want to help other people, that's how you turn that personal brand into a fucking empire and run your business correctly. Okay. So I really had that aha moment where I sat down and I started mapping out his, how he was going to just structure his content. And the thing is he was like, hey, you're the perfect content strategist for this. I was like, this is an idea I could really take and run with. And of course, I do have a life and business coach. She is awesome. And I know I had presented this framework to her and she absolutely loved it and said, you better fucking run with this or else I'm going to murder you. Not in a lot of sense. So that is the pivot and the shift that I have done. So I help other women who have personal brands. You have small businesses. You want to elevate yourself in your content. You're afraid to be seen. You're afraid to post. You ghost after you post. You are inconsistent. Let your inner child hold you back when you want to be bold and powerful when it comes to your content so you can scale your business. Because content creation is part of businesses these days, whether you're a large business or a small business. We all know that. Yes, you can still build a brand outside of social media, but social media does help reach all the masses. And it's a great marketing tool. And that's one of the things that I had to learn the hard way. So I'm trying to make this easier for you women out there that have personal brands, small businesses, to elevate yourself when it comes to your content. Okay. That is why I did the shift. This is something I'm passionate about. And my entire TikTok page, which everything I talk about as far as following on TikTok and all that, everything is in the show notes. So, and I also am constructing a program that I'm about to launch somewhere at the end of this month, early February. If you need to be coached and helped on structuring your content so that you can scale your business and make fuck you money. Okay. So that is the reason why I pivoted. That is the shift. That is everything we're going to be talking about on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe so you get the latest episodes on this podcast, and make sure you follow on TikTok because I am dropping knowledge and just all good pieces when it comes to being feral in your brand. Okay. So let's get into today's episode. In today's episode, I'm going to be just diving into a couple of, 2 or 3 topics. Okay. So we're going to talk about why your inner child is blocking your brand. Okay. This is something that I know very, very personally because I let my inner child wounds block my brand. Now, we're going to be talking about childhood visibility wounds because I see a lot of people who create content that have personal brands, women who have personal brands, that when they show up to do their content, it feels very forced. It feels fake and it's not very authentic. It seems like you're reading a script instead of, okay, these are some talking points, and then just instead of talking to somebody personally, like one person on a FaceTime call, you're reading a fucking script. We're going to talk about that. Why adults still freeze up. Why as an adult you still freeze up when you want to create content, when you want to post that TikTok video, when you want to press record, when you want to post on that Instagram story, whatever that case is, or even if you want to record on a podcast, why you freeze up. And then how this shows up in your content, in your personal brand that you're trying to build. Okay, how these things show up because you can easily tell. So let's start out with childhood visibility wounds. Now, I can tell you from personal experience how when I started being a content creator, because in business, when you start creating content, you're a content creator. There's no way around that. Okay, whether you create content, a few times a week or you create content daily, you are a content creator. Whether you're doing TikTok shop or you're doing UCG, or you're doing, some other type of content, you are a content creator. Okay. So let's kind of get that out of the gate. Okay. So personally for me, when it came to visibility wounds in my childhood and that inner child, is that I felt I had to be censored when it came to my content, not to make people feel bad, not to piss people off, not to have people have this perception of me that I had to, you know, I have to say X, Y, and Z. So people think this and they like me and this and that, and they follow me, they accept me. That was the visibility wound that I saw. And when I sit there and I dive into content, when I'm looking to see who I can help out there, what I see is I see women who have personal brands, small business owners, play it very small because they want to gain a following. They think followers equals money, and it doesn't. Okay. And I'm going to explain why. So follow with me here. Just, continue to listen to me. Follow me here. Okay. Content is a driving force where you're going to create connection with people. You're going to be the authority, and you are going to create a sense of community when it comes to content creation. So visibility wounds show up as you're the people pleaser, you're trying to be perfect, you're not consistent, that if you say all the right things, people will follow you and then the money will follow. You're afraid because people will judge you from the gate. You are trying to, follow what somebody else is doing. Listen, all that shit is bullshit. Okay. And I know this is going to trigger the shit out of some of you. That is all bullshit. Okay. Perfection, throw that out the window. If you're consistent and you show up messy, and we don't want to be relatable, you want to get a message across, because when people are searching things on TikTok or on YouTube or on Instagram, they're looking to solve a problem. Your personal brand has to solve some kind of problem and give them an instant solution or an instant result to at least one of their problems. Okay. So you can't show up scared. You can't show up as pretty perfect. Listen, when I do my TikTok videos and I show up on TikTok, 9 times out of 10, like my hair is in a ponytail and I just hit record, because it's like I am on a FaceTime call with my best friend or even with one of my daughters, because I have older kids. So that is the message. That is the just presence that you have. Think of it as you're talking to one person. Okay. So in childhood, it may have been you were ignored, or you had to compete to be loved, or you had to do things so that people see you. You were afraid to be seen because you were judged, you were shamed, you were rejected, you were neglected. That's how I see some people who create content that own personal brands. That's how I see them show up on TikTok. And I am like, no, where is the real you? Where is the person with the fire and the drive and just standing on fucking business? Like, where is that woman? And I see a lot of people who have small businesses and personal brands that are afraid to show up. They're inconsistent, and then you don't see them for a while because there's that criticism, the judgment, the shame, and people who are keyboard warriors that love to say shit, but they're not doing shit either with their life. And because somebody is doing it better, and then you're jealous because they're doing it better. Okay. Now, why do you freeze up? Why do adults freeze up? Because all that shame, that criticism of a parent or both parents, neglect, abandonment, trying to be perfect so you can be loved, trying to not rock the boat because if you say something, people won't follow you, they won't like you. Listen, we're not here to be fucking relatable. Yes, people can relate to you, but does that make you money? Absolutely not. Not. When you're a little polarizing and you trigger people, but you solve an issue for them, that is what people buy. That is what creates not only connection, but people will go ahead and say, I need to be in the room with her. I need to know what she's all about. I need to know, hey, this is somebody I want to work with. Okay. So you freeze up because there's that fight or flight. It's scary because this is social media and people are always judging me and I see other content creators getting hate. So you freeze up. No. Or it's, the flight. Well, I posted this, but I don't think it was really good because my makeup wasn't on point and you ghost it altogether. No. So that is some of the reasons, because you have to tie in to how your childhood wounds reflect in your content. Because I can tell you, there is a lot of women with personal brands on TikTok right now that show up and their content does not resonate with me. It doesn't tell me a story about who they are. It doesn't tell me, hey, okay, this person knows this problem. I have this pain. How can they solve it? So that is one of the things when it comes to freezing up that I see a lot when people create content. Now, my third and final point is, how does this show up in your content? Well, I just explained it in your personal brand. This shows up in your personal brand when you seem like you're reading from a script. Okay. You don't have all your thoughts together. You're trauma dumping. Okay. Which trauma dumping is never a good thing, especially when you're trying to bring in leads and you're trying to bring in clients into your personal brand and you're trying to make more money, right? So it could be, well, you're very timid. You don't want to show parts of you. You don't want to tell your story, because storytelling, that is what content creation is, guys, is storytelling. You have to tell people your story because people resonate with that. And that's how you get people to become clients and they pay you and you get to scale that brand. Okay. Those are one of the pieces that I had to learn the hard way, because your content is everything. If you show up, even if you're scared and people resonate with that, people are going to go ahead and say, how can I work with you? How can, you can elevate me? How can we collaborate on this brand? And how can you get a deal, making more money? Okay. So how I see this in content is people are just afraid to be themselves. People are afraid to be authentically them. When you're authentic, you're raw, you're real, you're vulnerable. That is what draws people in. I appreciate people who actually tell their story, regardless if it's messy, regardless if it's, if I have a difference of opinion, but if it resonates with me and it triggers something in me to say, you know what, I want to know more about this person, that is how you need to show up. You need to have vulnerability. You need to be raw. You need to be real. And you know what? You could be a little bit triggering. Not much, just a little bit, okay? Because you don't want to trigger people and then people leave, okay? Money is not about how many followers you have. Okay. What you have to concentrate when you're building a personal brand is you have to concentrate on building that connection and that authority with the audience and your people. Okay. You have to do that. Okay. It's not being relatable. Yeah, people can relate to you. That's fine. It's not going to make you money, but you have to build that authority and that connection. Okay. On how you show up in your content. Be vulnerable. Be honest with people, because in this stage in the game, when it comes to, business and even in coaching, people want more people that are real and that are real people. People don't want to see you reading from a script. Stop that fucking shit. Okay. I could tell you these podcast episodes and anything I do on my TikTok page, nothing is script. Like, I have some ideas. Okay. These are some ideas I wrote down, and then I press record and I just talk. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's together. It doesn't matter. Like, stop trying to be perfect. Okay. We want consistency, not perfection. Okay. So download the free audio series that I have linked in the show notes, because I give you it's a 3-part audio series where I give you why your inner child is just blocking your brand. As long as you let the inner child and those wounds from your childhood fucking stop you from creating the content that you should be putting out there, she's going to continue to run the show. And you are going to make less and less money and probably quit. And that's not what I want you to do. Okay. So download the free audio series because it will help you out. So that is the episode for today. So in the next episode, I'm going to be talking about why you freeze before you post and what you need to do instead. So make sure you stay tuned for that episode. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Make sure you follow on TikTok and you subscribe to the podcast, and I will chat with you in the next episode.